remember when we talked about the 14th chamber getting hijacked?
I remember that it's a construct of the archons. It's not a naturally occurring chamber because it takes the place of what I call the ready room behind the pineal gland.
Hmm.
And when I scanned you, yours is being rebuilt. But that's where they want us to take in the pineal gland, like when you get upset and sometimes you get pain behind your eyes, that's where it is. But through whatever means they do, trauma and all that, they construct it out here. So it's out, you go outside of your body with your emotions. So destroying that and returning back internally then brings you back to center. So what I was thinking is that it's sort of like creating an imposter heart chakra to bring you out here rather than being in here. So
That's so
that's
funny you say that because where I went when you started talking about the 14th chamber and the archons kind of misusing it or taking it elsewhere was there's been something that's coming in the last several months has been the awareness of what I've heard called the master cell within the heart. And it's like the very center point of our physical existence because it's basically the spark of sperm fertilizing egg and creating a heartbeat. So it's like literally the oldest part of our physical body because it's where our heartbeat started, and the heartbeat is the very first thing that a fetus develops in embryo. And so this idea of the master cell is like it's almost an origin point in a way, and I can see it making total sense for somebody to come along and figure that out and go, oh, well, let's just take this thing out of here and let's put it up here or here or here or somewhere totally else where it's like you said, it's outside of ourselves, it's outside of our heart. And so I think that's the important shift there is um oh, so does that mean that it's meant to be eliminated completely, or does it mean that it's an outer reflection of what belongs in the core of our center of our heart? So do we bring it back to the heart? Is that what it's meant to happen? Is it like inside the heart chamber? It's like it's connected to whatever this thing is that I was describing. It's like
yeah.
it's like by moving that central access point to somewhere else, they're able to connect differently to the layers in the auric field. And maybe it has something to do with the okay, so here's another thing that's kind of recently coming into my awareness is that the seven chakra system is also totally bogus. And so maybe that's connected to this idea of, well, if you take the center point out of where it belongs and put it somewhere else, then, well, how do we get to those? How do we get to the auric field? Well, you give it a portal. And so you have the seven portals of the chakras that are connected to the auric layers. And so maybe there's a mechanism that's within the chakras that also doesn't belong. That's a reflection of this, this moving this portal that's meant to be within the heart chamber outside of ourselves.
Yeah. Well, but as you're talking, what I'm seeing is just for number 14 as an example, it does a couple things. Number one, it takes you away from center, but then also now the archons don't need permission to enter your central system anymore, or sigils sitting out here with their emblems on it.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is go take the sigils off of all of these external portals, collapse them, remove the corridors and all that stuff, and then come back and heal whatever the true thing is. So what I'm thinking is that what you're saying about the false chakra system, it could be that it's external, or that our concept of what chakras are is just a dumbing down of the unity of our auric field, possibly. That instead of it having like separate things for each endocrine system, that instead those are just the valves, the control mechanisms, but what's the actual chakra center is the external layer of your auric field that goes out. So just a theory. I should do a lot more research on that, see if I'm on track.
Well, what's interesting is you're talking about that, and I'm kind of like particularly with the chambers of influence that we talked about. So if there's one around each chakra, all seven, and then there's head, heart, gut on front and back and a 14th, well, that's seven and seven. So maybe it is a mirror reflection of one's within and one's without. And like you said, if they've got their sigils on them, then they have full access. No wonder why it's hard to get rid of this stuff because we're like they're all just because
Yeah,
they're like F you, this is our house. And you
yeah,
can't do anything about it because you don't understand it and it's built that way on purpose.
right. Well, we got it now.
Well, yes, I think there is a level of self-preservation there that whoever they powers that be, don't want to be seen because they don't want to have to exit and go, start over somewhere else. Like they feel like they have a good here and they deserve to be here. So they're going to
Yeah,
interfere at whatever level they feel is justified to whatever end that they desire because they've been here for so long. But the reality is if we take a step back and look at the whole system and how, cycles work, like it's all cycles within cycles, and we're just experiencing a lot because we're coming up on a big one, and we're seeing the convergence points as things come together. And it's all, I mean, those types of situations that you're describing is meant to trigger us back into the fear paradigm so that they can, as keep claiming more power and trying to keep themselves established here. And so the real power is just, standing in truth and trust that divine will is at play, even though we're still seeing distortions, and that all will come to light in its own timing. And I think we're really on to something here with this inner and outer and kind of mirrored reflections of this system. So what do you think about going into a clearing of this? What do we want to call it? It's a non-physical body system, um, and it's designed to create interference in our field. And so I've heard people talk about removing their chakras, but I think that's an incomplete process, because if you remove the chakras, but you still have the other seven kind of reflections of it, then you're going to have some weird, jarring, maybe stuff bouncing around. But, and I'm not saying remove them necessarily, but what I am saying is let's take the sigils down, close all the portals,
There you
and,
go.
and maybe just like kind of like shut it down as a system for the collective and see what
Yep.
happens.
Yep.